Hello everyone, welcome to Gems Abroad. Today we're breaking down Australia's new Genuine Student Assessment Framework, the most critical requirement for Indian students seeking Australian student visas in 2025-2026. If you're planning for the February or July intake in Australian universities, this presentation will provide you with essential information to prepare a successful application. The GS framework replaced the older Genuine Temporary Entrant requirement in March 2024, creating a more transparent but rigorous evaluation system. The Genuine Student Assessment is a comprehensive evaluation conducted jointly by Australian universities and the Department of Home Affairs. Unlike previous systems that primarily focused on financial capacity, the GS assessment examines multiple factors to determine if you're genuinely committed to studying in Australia. This holistic approach evaluates your academic background, career aspirations, and your overall circumstances to ensure you're a genuine student with legitimate educational goals. Universities want to ensure you're not just financially capable, but also academically and professionally suitable for your chosen course of study. The GS framework evaluates 9 critical factors during your application assessment. While financial capacity remains the most heavily weighted factor, all 9 components are carefully scrutinized. These include gaps in your educational timeline, quality and relevance of your work experience, how well your chosen course aligns with your career path, eligibility factors for spouse visa cases, your previous immigration history, family connections in Australia, your financial background in India, your planned circumstances while in Australia, and most importantly, your financial capacity to support your studies. Each factor contributes to building a complete picture of you as a genuine student applicant. Let's talk about educational gaps, which are common concerns for many Indian applicants. The good news is that gaps are acceptable if properly justified and documented. After completing your 12th standard, a maximum gap of 1 year is generally acceptable without extensive documentation. For post-bachelor's degree gaps, Australian authorities understand career development periods, and gaps of 5 to 6 years can be acceptable with proper employment documentation showing career progression. The key is transparent documentation. Unexplained gaps raise red flags, while well-documented employment or other legitimate reasons for educational breaks are viewed favorably. Your work experience should logically connect to your chosen course of study. For example, if you're applying for an MBA, HR program, IT course, or engineering degree, your professional background should reflect experience in the same or related field. This alignment demonstrates that your Australian education builds upon your existing knowledge and career path. When documenting work experience, 3 elements are critical: original salary slips showing consistent employment, bank statements showing corresponding salary deposits, and official offer letters from recognized employers. These documents collectively prove legitimate work experience and strengthen your case as a genuine student. For those planning to bring a spouse to Australia, be aware that the requirements are particularly stringent. There are 4 non-negotiable conditions. First, your marriage must be at least 1 year old at the time of application. Recent marriages face higher scrutiny. Second, your spouse must have completed at least a bachelor's degree or equivalent qualification. Third, your spouse should have employment history demonstrating financial independence. Finally, your combined financial situation must be particularly strong, exceeding the minimum requirements for single applicants. Australia does offer the valuable benefit of full-time work rights for spouses of student visa holders, but this comes with heightened scrutiny during the application process. Many applicants worry that previous visa refusals from countries like the US, UK, Canada, Ireland, or New Zealand might automatically disqualify them from Australian student visas. However, prior refusals don't necessarily doom your application. The critical factor is transparency and explanation. Your statement of purpose, SOP, must clearly address any previous refusals, explaining the circumstances and, most importantly, how your situation has changed since the refusal. Australian authorities are primarily concerned with understanding the context and ensuring those issues won't affect your Australian visa compliance. Undisclosed refusals, however, can lead to immediate rejection, so honesty is essential. Having family members in Australia can either strengthen or weaken your application depending entirely on their visa compliance history. If your relatives in Australia have followed all visa conditions and maintained good immigration standing, their presence can actually support your application by providing a legitimate support network. However, if your family members have any history of visa breaches, overstays, or other non-compliance issues, this creates a high-risk profile for your application.
Australian authorities cross-reference family connections, so it's essential to disclose these relationships truthfully and be prepared to explain how they might support your genuine student status.
Financial assessment has become the single most influential factor in the GS evaluation process. Even if there are minor concerns in other areas of your application, exceptionally strong financial documentation can overcome these weaknesses. Conversely, even with perfect academics and work experience, inadequate financial evidence will likely lead to rejection. The assessment looks not just at the total amount available, but also at the stability, source, and consistency of your funds. This shift in priorities reflects Australia's focus on ensuring students can complete their entire course without financial strain or needing to work beyond allowed hours. For a typical one-year program in Australia, Indian students need to demonstrate financial capacity of approximately 40-45 lakh. Though this varies by university and location. This total typically breaks down into 4 categories. First, tuition fees averaging 20-30 lakh depending on your program and university. Second, living expenses of approximately 117.5 lakh, covering accommodation, food, and essential services. Third, travel costs of around 1.5 lakh for international flights and domestic transportation. Finally, overseas student health cover, OSHC, costing between 1-2 lakh. These figures represent the minimum requirements. Showing additional funds above these amounts strengthens your application considerably. Australian authorities have specific rules regarding who can sponsor your education financially. Parents are considered the primary sponsors and can contribute up to 100% of the required funds. Siblings and grandparents can typically sponsor up to 50% of your expenses. Extended family members like uncles and aunts can contribute between 30-50% depending on their relationship and financial circumstances. Regardless of your family situation, at least 50% of your funding should come from your parents unless there are exceptional circumstances such as deceased parents. Multiple sponsors are acceptable, but each must provide comprehensive documentation of their financial capacity and relationship to you. Beyond showing the lump sum amount for your expenses, sponsors must demonstrate sufficient ongoing income to support your education. The combined annual income of all sponsors should be at least 12-15 lakh per year, with higher income levels above 15 lakh preferred for cases involving unsecured loans. This requirement ensures that your sponsors have sustainable financial capacity throughout your education period, not just a temporary accumulation of funds. Remember that universities and immigration officials analyze income trends over time. Sudden income increases just before application raise suspicion, while consistent income documentation over several years strengthens your case. Australian authorities accept several types of income documentation from Indian sponsors. For salaried individuals, Form 16, salary slips, and bank statements showing regular salary deposits are essential. Business owners should provide GST registration documents, business registration certificates, and tax returns. For rental income, both rental agreements and bank statements showing regular rent deposits are required.
Agricultural income requires particularly comprehensive documentation, which we'll cover in the next slide.
Remember that all income documents should demonstrate a consistent pattern over time, typically at least 12 months, to be considered credible evidence of financial stability. Agricultural income receives exceptional scrutiny in Australian student visa applications from India. If your financial support comes from agricultural sources, you must provide 5 specific documents. First, income tax returns specifically showing agricultural income. Second, land ownership documents proving the agricultural property belongs to your sponsor. Third, crop sale receipts documenting actual revenue from agricultural production. Fourth, income certificates from local government authorities validating the agricultural income claims. Fifth, bank statements showing deposits that correspond with claimed agricultural revenue. Missing any of these 5 documents significantly reduces the chances of agricultural income being accepted as valid financial support. Australian universities have specific requirements for acceptable fund sources. Bank balances and fixed deposits should typically be 6 to 12 months old, showing financial stability over time rather than recent lump sum deposits. Education loans from nationalized banks and established private banks are generally accepted, while loans from non-banking financial companies, NBFCs like Avance, Incred, Prodigy, and Tata Capital face higher scrutiny or outright rejection. One exception is Credila loans, which may be accepted but only if fully disbursed before application. Public Provident Fund (PPF) accounts with withdrawal permissions can also be accepted as financial evidence, though additional documentation may be required. It's crucial to understand that GS assessment rules vary significantly between Australian universities. Some institutions require funds to be held for 6 months before application, while others may require 12 months of financial history. Loan requirements also differ. Some universities will issue confirmation of enrollment (COE) only after full loan disbursement, while others accept loan approval letters. Some universities conduct mandatory GS interviews for Indian applicants, while others rely solely on documentation. These variations make it essential to research the specific requirements of your target universities rather than following general guidelines, as what works for one institution may lead to rejection at another. In November 2025, Australia implemented Ministerial Direction 115, which introduced a tiered priority system for student visa processing. Applications are now categorized into 3 priority levels. Priority 1 includes universities operating below 80% of their allocated international student intake. These applications receive fastest processing. Priority 2 covers institutions at 80-115% of their allocation with standard processing times. Priority 3 applies to universities exceeding 115% of their allocation, resulting in slower processing. Additionally, applications flagged for potential fraud face significantly longer processing times and more intensive verification procedures. This system aims to distribute international students more evenly across Australian institutions while maintaining integrity in the visa process. The visa processing timeframes have evolved in 2025. Most standard applications now receive decisions within 2 to 4 weeks of submission. Some Priority 1 applications with exemplary documentation can receive approvals in as little as 7 days. However, applications requiring additional verification, particularly those with agricultural income, complex financial arrangements, or previous immigration issues, may take 8 to 12 weeks for final determination. These processing timelines assume complete and correct documentation. Any request for additional information can extend these periods significantly. We recommend applying at least 12 weeks before your intended start date to accommodate any potential delays in the process. To maximize your chances of GS approval, focus on these 6 strategic areas. First, maintain stable funds in your accounts for at least 6 to 12 months before applying, avoiding sudden large deposits. Second, demonstrate strong and consistent income sources with comprehensive documentation. Third, choose a course that logically builds on your previous education and career trajectory. Fourth, clearly explain any gaps in your educational or employment history with supporting evidence. Fifth, avoid relying on NBFC loans as your primary funding source. Finally, develop a strong statement of purpose that ties together all elements of you. If you're feeling overwhelmed by the GS assessment process, GEMS Abroad offers specialized services to help Indian students navigate these requirements. Our team can evaluate your GS eligibility based on your unique profile, provide financial planning guidance to meet Australian requirements, and assist with strategic course selection to maximize your approval chances. Contact us today for a personalized consultation to begin your Australian education journey with confidence. If you found this information helpful, please like this video, share it with others planning to study in Australia, and subscribe to our channel for more updates on international education opportunities and visa processes. Thank you for watching.